Hey, we're back to go ahead and finish up this LOCA process. You can see that I went ahead and took this old S2 frame and I cut out some sections of it. The goal is that some of the LOCA glue will slide down the sides rather than onto the back of the phone. I'll try to keep it as clean as possible, and doing this, although a little bit more time consuming, seems to keep it a little bit cleaner in the end. So I have my screen here. I've cleaned it a little bit. I've pulled off a lot of the chunks of larger LOCA. Basically, just using my finger to kind of scrub it off. Don't use anything that's too abrasive on it. If it's really difficult, you can use some alcohol. This is 90% proof alcohol, and I'm just using a microfiber cloth to kind of clean it. So we'll just go ahead and make some strokes from the top to the bottom, and make sure that you get all of the glue residue off of this. You don't want anything that is left over. It'll streak a little bit as it dries on the LCD, but don't stress that. When you put the LOCA glue on it, it will give it a wet look and those streaks will go away. As long as you don't have any dust or any leftover glue underneath it, and everything will turn out fine. You want to make sure it's nice and clean though. And just kind of trying to bend this LCD connector here on the back so it'll sit nice and flush. Now I don't have a LOCA mold for this. The only ones I could see were the generic international version for the S2, and this is actually a T-Mobile version of the S2, which is a little bit different in the size in which the glass is. So I'm just going to use the old bezel since I'll be replacing it with a new one. And just kind of cutting it to fit the LOCA process. So here we go. I'm going to just use this APS LOCA glue. I got this off of eBay. It was probably 20 bucks for the 30 milliliter bottle. 30 milliliters will probably do about 5, 6, or 7 replacements, depending upon how much glue you use and how big the screens are that you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and clean it again now for the final, before I go ahead and put the glass on. Now that I know that all the glue is off, make sure there's no fingerprints on it, and just wiping up and down and making sure that all the dust is removed and there's no specks or spots on it. So you leave a little bit of dust on it, it'll kind of look like a dead pixel on your screen. So you definitely don't want that. You want to make sure it's nice and clean. So I spend a lot of time making sure that all of the glue is removed off of the screen. You can see that there's the streaks on it, and again, don't worry about that, not a big deal. Make sure that the LCD is sitting nice and flush in the mold. You can see in the left of the video I have my UV light here. This is just a salon UV light. We're going to go ahead and put our glue on. We're going to put it in an elongated X. I like to use this for the smaller screens. Some people do just put on a line, but really that seems like the hardest part to get the glue into is the corners of the LCD. I'd say if I was to measure this out, I probably used I'd say maybe 4.5, 5 milliliters of glue, which may seem a little bit excessive, but the goal is I want it to look brand new, no bubbles, and to do that and have the ability to kind of squish the bubbles out, you do need to use a little bit of excess glue. So I have my screen, and I'm going to put it on and sit it nice and flush on the bottom side of the bezel. This is the trickiest part because this is where all the bubbles form, is when it first touches. So I'm going to take my pry tool here, and I'm going to set it down so it's sitting upwards, and I'm going to gently twist the pry tool nice and slow so that will release the glass down onto the LCD in a nice even fashion. Now you don't want to rush this part. Like I was saying, this is where normally if you're going to get bubbles in the process, this is where it happens, is right when it first touches down. You see I'm slowly twisting the LCD or the pry tool I'm using so it's flat. It's made contact, so I'll stop twisting it and let the glass set down and kind of work its way up until it stops touching. Then I'll gently start to pry the tool out, and that'll go ahead and start to drop the glass a little bit. And again, it's going nice and slow. If you try to rush this, you'll get very frustrated. This needs to be a nice slow process. Pulling out little by little. Just a little bit. You can see that the pry tool I'm using is kind of like a flathead screwdriver, like just a bezel on one side. And that's the goal, that's what I'm using. Go ahead and pull it out, and it's set down nice. Since all of the glue is really touching the glass, I don't have to stress about too many bubbles now. We just want to make sure that the glass will fit within the bezel, and the speaker grill will make sure that it's sitting exactly in place. Just put a little tiny bit of pressure with my pry tool onto the screen to get the glue to kind of flow out evenly. Just take your time, let it work itself a little bit. You don't have to put a lot of force on it. You can kind of move the glue in the way in which you want it to go if you put pressure and kind of push behind it into the direction that you want it to go. So if you want it to spread to the corner, start kind of in the middle upper portion of the screen and then push into that corner, and the glue will flow into that area. I'm going to use my fingers and start to put a little bit more pressure on it. The nice thing about having a cutout, like I did with the old mid-frame of this phone, is that I can put pressure on the back side of the screen, the LCD screen, with my finger, and I can have a little bit more control over the glue. Let's go ahead and press it towards the corner here. It'll kind of create a little bit of a suction as you do this, is what you're looking for. See the screen, the glass moved there just a little bit, so we're just going to try to get it back into place. If you do have any bubbles around the corners of the phone, you can use your finger to press from the side of the phone you want it to, and then back on the back of the LCD and kind of push the bubble out. You just want to go nice and slow as you do it. Now if you let the pressure off and the glue kind of comes back out and it kind of gives you the spider web effect on the phone, that's fine. Just go ahead and put your finger towards the middle of the glass and push more glue to the corner that you want it to go to. So I'm just going to use a cloth and clean up some of the excess glue there that comes out of the corners of the phone. I'm going to use a little bit of alcohol to clean the sides of it. Go ahead and turn my UV lamp on here. And let's try to make sure that there's no bubbles, there's no dust. If you do need to put a little bit of pressure onto a corner if you're having a hard time, go ahead and hold it down as you put it underneath the UV light, which is what I'm doing right now. And that'll kind of harden the glue a little bit and make it stay. So let you kind of do the corners first to make sure that those are nice and set. There's no bubbles or anything underneath it. And then I will slide the entire phone underneath once I'm sure that the glue is not going to come back up once I release it. So just like so, it looks pretty good. Just going to try to move it forward so you can get a better view of it here. Just checking the corners, making sure that it looks good, that none of the glue is coming back out. Now that I'm satisfied, I'm going to go ahead and stick it underneath the UV light for a little bit and let the glue cure. I'm just going to kind of clean my fingers off. This glue it seems to get everywhere. And it's a little bit hard to get off. So it doesn't have to bake for a long time. I don't want to get it stuck in the mid-frame. So go ahead and just remove it here. Now that I'm sure it's not going to get stuck in the mid-frame. There's a lot of glue around the excess edge there. So now what we're going to do is clean off the glue around the sides of the phone, just with some alcohol and a microfiber cloth. It doesn't seem extremely set yet, so I'm going to put it back in here for just a few more seconds. Look like the LCD moved a little bit underneath the glass. So I'm going to go ahead and clean off the glass a little bit more on the front here before I put it back underneath for a little bit longer. Looks like it needs to go underneath the UV light for just a few more seconds before I start to clean all the glue off the back of the screen. Just going to use a dry cloth to clean off that alcohol. We'll let it set underneath the UV light for a little bit longer. I'm going to make sure it's nice and baked in there this time. And put it in there for quite some time. Alright. Go ahead and try to remove the screen from the frame. So we're just going to gently press on it and get it removed. The next thing we need to do is we need to clean all of the edges of this with alcohol and a microfiber cloth. So any of the bezel area around the glass, anywhere there's excess glue leaking out from underneath off the back of the phone, on the edges of the phone, we need to make sure it's spotless all the way around. So doing your best to get the cloth into the crevices around the bezel and the sides of the LCD is really key in making sure that when you go to reinstall this LCD into the new mid-frame of the phone that it sticks well. If you have excess glue, I'm using a spudger here, you can see the end of it sticking out to give me a little extra maneuverability underneath. If you have excess glue that's leaking out, it won't stick to the tape underneath. So you want to make sure that there is no glue on the sides of this phone when you go to reassemble it. So we're going to clean it very thoroughly here. Let's go ahead and wipe it all away. Start down this other edge of the phone. Clean it nice. Again, making sure that I get the cloth into the crevices, getting all of that glue out. This cloth does have alcohol on it. Put a little bit more. Just make sure that it's really clean. Got to make sure all the camera ports and openings that sensors go is clean as well. Now I've heard people saying that LOCA isn't the best thing to use. You actually want to use optical clear adhesive, as the LOCA never really sets. So normally what I do, when I'm not trying to test this video and make this video shorter, is I put it in upside down like I just had it, underneath the UV light, to make sure any glue around the edges of the LCD cures as well, so there's no later leakage out, and get a nice tight seal. But I want to test this LCD to make sure it still functions, and I don't want this video to be extremely long, but I would suggest doing that. So putting it right side up, taking it out of the mid frame, cleaning the glue off the back side of it, and then putting it in upside down to make sure that all of the corners and sides is nice and set. But we want to test the touch functionality of the new glass and make sure that the LCD is still functioning properly. Show you what that looks like. Let's get something to press the power button here. Excellent. So it's still functioning. It powers up. There's our start screen. Let's give it a few seconds to power on. All right. Perfect. It's definitely responding. It's moving through all the menus. Excellent. So it does respond to touch. Looks like we are set. Alright, so that's the entire LOCA process. We're going to go ahead and reassemble the phone now. So if you want to watch that video, there's going to be a link in the bottom right hand corner here you can click. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. If you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments. I'll do my best to reach out to them and see if I can't get them answered for you. And as always, thanks for watching the videos, you guys. Hopefully I'll see you on the next one.